Matthew chapter 24, and start at verse 4. And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, the kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in divers places. All these things are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because the iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. May God bless the reading of His Word. Bible smack. Alright, admittedly, I have not, I've been doing good about my writing. I haven't been doing a lot of internet radio for a while. Some difficulties, and also just trying to figure out, where my next move is. I have gotten some opportunities, though. I've, done my writing on YouTube. Not YouTube. I've done my blogging and done a little bit of YouTube, but I've kind of backed off a little bit of that too. And being able to do some AM radio as well as, some of my local church ministries. Now, basically, some of my thoughts I just wanted to kind of get off, and I think I'll just title this The Problem with Truthers. But basically, we look at our political situation right now. The big bull in the china shop, the big elephant in the room is, there's a bull in the china shop and there's an elephant in the room. That's been the communist movement taking over America. And they've had different names for it. If it's just on the Democrat side, we say it's the left. But it has also penetrated sectors of Republicans and stuff like that. And, you look at the way the Communist Party operates. They use their media, as propaganda, Then they also get control of the youth, and they have a violent uprising. They take control of the minorities of a country, and through that they wage war on the bourgeoisie, which is the middle class. Everything is pretty well, been on the road going to that plan. Usually, the answer has been in the past either A, you let the country just disintegrate to nothing, and then, try to restore order afterwards, or B, you have a tough guy comes in and with almost dictatorship authority suppresses the movement of communism to that country. So, in comes the bull in the china shop, which is Donald Trump, who's the tough guy. Now, it's a weird thing because Donald Trump purports himself to be, on the far right, but actually he was always the middle of the road. So it's more of a big mouth. And then, he's like, oh, I'm going to go all the way over here. And he's just like, I said right here, You can see that in his big spending. You can see that in his healthcare ideas and stuff. You know, he's not providing the ultimate answer. But one of the big problems is that we've got people with limited vision in this truther movement. And either it's because they're dumb, and some of them are, I mean, but it's also because they are controlled opposition. Now, you know, you have Christian and non-Christian truthers. But basically, you know, one of the problems is they say, well, Donald Trump is not perfectly pure. And he advertised himself as not somebody who was perfectly pure. But he said he knew the system and he had a problem with the people in the system. So he's going to go after them. And what's happened is that there are people both from the old guard and some of these truthers, some of these like libertarian style truthers who will just say, okay, we're going to oppose him from making changes to stop communism. And, you know, because we know he's not going to go far enough. You know, and then they'll say, well, we've lost our freedom. America's lost its freedom. Okay, well, if that's reality, then it's reality. If we're slaves, shouldn't you have a better slave master that gives you more liberty and will give you the eventual ability to make a comeback? You know, can we go step 1 and step 2? Instead, we've had the stupidity of this reactionary thing, which falls in line with, let's see here, what was his name? Well, it's that idea of the thesis, antithesis, where you move everything farther to the left, 2 steps, then the pushback comes 1 step, and then we move forward 2 more steps. That type of dancing is what we see going on here because we're not thinking more than 1 or 2 steps ahead. So basically, as we've kind of mapped out with that, you have these quick reactions, and then you have people who just are so easily deceived. They only go 1 idea or 2 ideas. Some of it's because our culture has already been captured mentally. As I said, you know, politically, since we didn't have any other options, there's nothing wrong with going with Donald Trump because he takes so many other steps forward. You know, he's made a lot of steps forward on the environmental movement. The environmentalism was the main tool of the left to take over our society. You know, with all this stuff, with the climate change and everything, they were going with carbon bucks, and they were trying to make international laws, and they were taking away our 4th Amendment property rights. You know, and also, everything's looked good so far. You never know with this, but with the Supreme Court, with getting a more conservative Supreme Court justice, hopefully we'll move forward in the other judges and stuff like that. You know, basically, he's still doing a good job on so many issues. Why would you want to stand in the same place that the people in the left are to shut him down so that they can come back in power? Because you won't come back in power. They've got more power. They've got, you know, they've set up their system. They've built it. And it's ready to move. While as what we have is something that just falls apart and falls apart and falls apart. Some of that is basically because We don't have a fixed ideology. You have to have answers, and you have to have a fixed ideology to move forward. And the problem is that we have a group that's mixed up with pagans, mixed up with heathens, and mixed up with liberal Christians, and so on and so forth, under this rubric that was called postmodernism. Without this fixed sense of truth, you don't really have a fixed military. And I'm using that metaphorically, but, eventually it will bleed into the physical if we don't watch out. The whole point of this time is the soft civil war. This whole period where we are at war, but we don't have to have as many casualties. We're starting to gain many casualties. Okay? It is becoming a real war as long as you understand who's involved with who. When we talk about the terrorism, when you talk about the drug cartels, when you talk about the minority racist, the racist Black Lives Matter movement, for instance, all these groups are causing people to get killed, and they're all tied in together, okay, with the Marxist ideology overreaching. Now, I do believe there is a greater evil force over Marxism, and that would be the Jesuit order of the Roman Catholic Church. But they are not active. Why? Because they figured out something. If they pull off their agenda with others, then they don't have to get their hands dirty. So what's happening is that we get our hands dirty and everything, and we get the blame for everything. We get the blame for things that we don't even do. I don't have an agenda for white people. I have an agenda for Christian people. My kingdom is not of this world. I consider someone who's black and a Christian to be my brother more than I would for someone of my own skin tone. But we do have the natural understanding that, let's say this, if my black Christian brother is dealing with issues of racism against him, well, then he has to speak out against it for his survival. And so would I. But that doesn't mean that that's my agenda. No, my agenda is being perverted. When everything I'm saying is being controlled, being silenced, or being twisted. And so that's the way of divide and conquer. Now, when we look at that, there's been a lot of control over those who are conservative Christians. We have first the old guard who got paid off and suppressed to go along with the Marxists. I think of Mitch McConnell, okay? He's, the head of the Senate and all this kind of stuff, and he's here to push the agenda of the conservatives forward. And while he's on that side, okay, while he's wearing the team colors, he lets things happen. And he let Obama win over and over again. And so by doing that, by having that control and giving it over, these guys become the MVP for the other team. And that's controlled opposition. So you have the old guard. You also have the old guard as far as the evangelical faith. And these men would sit here and say, oh yeah, I'm on this side and I'm on that side. But actually they kowtow and they do whatever the Roman Catholic Church wants. When I used to watch theological debates that were solely about Protestant issues, and yet you have a donor to the program who's Roman Catholic. The Acton Institute would fund these things. It's like, why would a Catholic organization fund Protestant theological debates? Okay? And that's that controlled opposition, where all of a sudden all these major popular money-grubbing evangelical groups would push all of these Roman Catholic Bibles that were focusing on the interpretations of Codex Vaticanus, and also translating in ways that would be less offensive to Roman Catholics. And, you know, expressions of church history in which the Roman Catholic interpretation was adhered to. So that's what we see. You have that top level, but what's also happened is you have a bottom level to this stuff. When we go into eschatology, the old guard was reverting into all millennialism. But yet on the bottom level, you have a controlled opposition